Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gorilla Whale, a Godzilla watch-along podcast. I am your kaiju consultant, Kevin Carpenter.
And I am bug trainer Kayla Knutson, ready to battle.
And
And that's enough that we can't use anymore because of copyright.
Today, folks, we are talking about the second movie in the Millennium Era, Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, aka Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, the G extermination strategy. And that title is much more exciting than the movie itself.
Kevin, I had a very busy week. A very, very busy week. My hours at work were so crazy. I watched this movie in 3 parts over the course of 3 days because I did not have... I mean, technically, I did have the time to sit down and watch it all in one go, but I did not have the will.
Yeah, this movie I also had to rewatch a few times. One, because that's what I normally do for these episodes. That way I can write up the summary and all that. And by the way, I'm still doing the new experimental stuff where I don't actually write out the script of what I'm saying, and it's a lot of loose bullet points. That was a lot easier for this movie because not a whole lot goes on.
Yeah.
In the next episode we're recording, I kind of fell back in some of my old habits and wrote out a bunch of summary
I think it's fine to write
stuff.
out your notes, whatever your workflow is.
Whatever the workflow is. Anyway, not a whole lot to say about Godzilla versus Megaguirus, but we're going to anyway.
You know us, we'll make a mountain out of a molehill if it kills us.
Exactly.
I have a question. Do you watch with Emma though? You watch
Yeah,
these movies with Emma?
I watch it with my
I don't
wife.
get to watch with anybody. I have to suffer alone.
It's nice because I can bounce off some thoughts with my wife when I'm watching these Godzilla movies, and then I can bounce them off of you. Not a whole lot of thoughts being bounced off of Megaguirus.
This is head empty, no thoughts.
But let's see if we can dredge
movie.
up. Let's see if we can dredge up some thoughts.
Yeah.
So let's start with the historical context. Maybe we can play around in that space. So on December 26, 1956, Rodan the film, the original Rodan, appeared in theaters. And featured in that film were a race of giant dragonfly nymphs known as Meganulon. And then 44 years later, these creatures would reappear on the silver screen. So just like how they got like Mogera, they brought him back from the Mysterians for Godzilla versus Space Godzilla. They're like, hey, let's get these like weird dragonfly things and bring them back to fight Godzilla.
Let's recycle a deep cut. Normally a big fan of this.
Yeah. So Godzilla 2000 Millennium was kind of a success. It was enough. Here's the thing. Directly compared to Godzilla 1998, it was a success.
Sure.
And
I will say, though, I had more fun watching Godzilla 1998 than I did watching this movie.
Yeah. So Godzilla 2000 Millennium comes out. It makes enough money to greenlight more Godzillas. That starts the Millennium Era. So Toho committed once again to a yearly Godzilla schedule. Usually we get like a little bit of build up to that, but no, we're just straight up like, all right, we're back to a Godzilla every Christmas.
Okay, here's the thing. If you're going to do this, if you're going to do a yearly Godzilla schedule, you need to have an A team and a B team, which is expensive because then you basically need to have 2 major motion pictures going at the same time, but at different stages in development. They should have an A team that gets a release date of, 2000, and then the B team is working on something that has a release date of 2000. But like they're working like they get 2 years because it's 2 teams, but then you still get a movie every year. It's like what movie studios, like for example, Blumhouse, which puts out a ton of horror movies comparable to, like maybe larger studios like WB or whatever. They have like lots of projects going at different places. Like this is traditionally what a studio does is they have a slate with many movies at many different parts so that they are less pressured generally to rush, though it still happens. Why isn't Toho doing this with Godzilla? Why don't they have like A Godzilla and B Godzilla working at different like to hit release schedules so that they both have more time? Because then we're still getting... Is it money?
Yeah.
It's money. It's always money.
So
money.
We'll get into this more in our next episode with GMK, but there's a behind the scenes detail I picked up where so in the Heisei era there were Godzilla movies and there was also a Gamera trilogy going on, and one of the directors of the Gamera trilogy was like, yeah, with Gamera we had time but we didn't have a whole lot of money. With Godzilla we had money but we didn't have a whole lot of time. So, it's back-to-back productions.
If we gave some of the Godzilla money to Gamera and some of the time from Gamera to Godzilla? Whatever.
That kind of happens with GMK, but we'll get into that next episode, which we are much more excited to talk about.
It was a better movie.
But we need to talk about this movie first.
So sorry, guys. Now we're really selling this episode to you. You guys should definitely watch this movie and listen to us shit talk it.
So...
Whatever, the internet feeds off of hate.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. This movie is not well regarded in the Godzilla fandom either.
Thank God.
I mean, as we've seen, every Godzilla movie was someone's first Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the broader fandom, Godzilla versus Megaguirus is seen as sort of a low point of the Millennium era.
Wonderful.
Which is what we're in right now. So this next movie, the same writers for Godzilla 2000, which are Hiroshi Kashiwabara and Wataru Mimura, they're back. We have a new director, though, Masaki Tezuka, who was the assistant director for Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. So that's not the sequel to Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. That was Terror of Mechagodzilla. This was the Heisei era Mechagodzilla. This was the one
they just slapped the two onto it for no reason.
Just wanted to make that clear.
I remember the bullshit.
So supposedly the writers had a beef with the previous director, Takeo Okawara, who was the director for a lot of the Heisei movies and was also the director for Godzilla 2000 Millennium. So in an interview with author Brett Hominick of Vantage Point Interviews, Hiroshi Kashiwabara would state, quote, "The director wanted to use his own ideas, so he gave many opinions about the script. I didn't like the director's ideas," end quote. He would also say, quote, "I don't think Mr. Okawara understood entertainment. He didn't know how to make action scenes work or look real in entertainment movies," end quote.
Okay, so the writers are back, but they hated the previous director, and now they have a new director, and yet they made a worse movie.
Yeah. So sometimes it isn't executive meddling.
Sometimes the creatives are just bad. I don't think that he understood entertainment. I don't know that you did either, buddy.
Yeah.
Because the last one was mid, but this was worse. I have gloves off. I'm exhausted this week, and you're getting an unfiltered. I'm being mean again. These people don't work in America. They're not going to hire me.
Unlike our superfan.
Unlike Dean Devlin, please call me.
On December 16th, 2000, Godzilla vs. Megaguirus is released. Mm-hmm. Gotta get that Godzilla for Christmas.
And they got coal this year. Sorry. Oh. I'm not sorry. Continue.
No, it's perfectly fine. So, going into the summary, remember that every Millennium movie, except for two later on, the Mechagodzilla movies will have their own continuity, but every Millennium movie here is also going to have their own continuity.
Yep.
So in this one, Godzilla attacked in 1954, but he was never deterred by the oxygen destroyer. So this is OG Godzilla. And in this alternate timeline, Japan moves its capital from Tokyo to Osaka in response to the Godzilla attacks. This makes no sense because Osaka also hugs a bay.
Okay, I know that Kyoto was like a historical capital, but wasn't there's like a palace in Osaka, right? You don't know this?
I don't know.
You don't know anything about Japan?
I know things about Japan, I just don't know this specific thing.
I think there's like the Emperor's there's a big palace in Osaka, I think. Like that's its big tourist draw. Why would you move the capital to another? Well, in a country like Japan, I suppose a lot of cities have ancient historical significance.
I think they just needed some way to easily say this was an alternate timeline besides what else they say about this alternate timeline, which is that energy policy took a drastic turn.
Yeah.
So Godzilla attacks, they move the capital.
Mostly for flavor, it seems.
Yeah. And then in 1966, Godzilla returns to attack a nuclear plant. So Japan is like, okay, Godzilla does not like nuclear energy. Let's move away from nuclear power and figure out alternative sources of energy. So then they put research into plasma energy. Okay, cool, sci-fi. But then in 1996, Godzilla attacks again and he messes up a plasma reactor. So they're like, well, shit, I guess we gotta move away from plasma.
Kevin, I'm beginning to think that Godzilla is being paid by big oil to sabotage alternate energy sources.
It's fascinating because there was a touch of this in the previous movie too. There's like that one scene in Godzilla 2000 where Godzilla attacks like an electrical plant.
Yeah.
And the main character is like, does Godzilla just hate energy infrastructure?
Godzilla is a Luddite. Godzilla is like on this. Godzilla's political affiliations mirror the Oklahoma the Unabomber.
Yeah.
Like Godzilla and the Unabomber have the same political affiliations. You can quote me on this. But not political affiliations, political ideas.
Like it's not just Godzilla's attacking nuclear plants. He's just attacking energy infrastructure.
Yeah.
And that is an idea that is being carried from the previous movie to this movie. And it's like, that's a weird thing for Godzilla to represent.
I mean, I guess theoretically you could take it as it's meant to be a larger metaphor for nature versus civilization. If these energy sources are symbolic of technology and civilization and progress, and Godzilla is an animal and representative of nature, then that could be like what is happening. It doesn't really feel like that's the point that they're actually trying to make, that it's some sort of, I mean, it is kind of man versus nature, but it just doesn't feel like they are leaning on that point very strongly or really arguing one way or another for technological like revolution or regression.
Yeah.
Because we have seen in the past, Godzilla has taken on a very strong eco metaphor with like anti-pollution and anti-pollution. Like Godzilla has been an anti-pollution metaphor, but this isn't really like an anti-pollution. This is just like an anti-technology, anti-energy with no necessarily cohesive argument around that.
Yeah, him attacking the plasma reactors is not really explained in this movie, but also it's like, hey, here's the dream energy source. It's clean, it's abundant, it gives a bunch of energy, and Godzilla hates that too.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's a climate crisis metaphor.
Yeah, it just feels like a weird dig at the advancement of energy infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess theoretically, like, there is a way to do this, I think, where it is just Godzilla is attacking humanity because it has become too technologically advanced, too globally dominant. And this is a metaphor for like the gods coming down from on high and laying low humanity for its hubris. You could do that, but it doesn't really feel entirely like that's what's happening here, because the humans are like, we don't know, like, there's no sense that humanity has really done anything wrong. It's just, Godzilla's being a real big bitch, guys.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
So, Godzilla attacks again. And instead of sending, like, the tanks and the jets and all that different stuff, instead, they send a single crack team of commandos.
Yeah, that was so weird. They send just SEAL Team 6. Just SEAL Team 6. No planes. No aircraft carriers with sea-to-air missiles. No subs. No, just a bunch of guys with rocket launchers.
And one girl. Commando Kiriko Sugimori. So this crack team of commandos, they're armed with rocket launchers. They're running around this like empty city as Godzilla is just stomping his way through. And they're just like, yeah, we're just going to shoot rockets at his feet and hope that works.
Crazy.
It's so dumb.
It's so dumb. I was like, this cannot be. Like, they've dealt with Godzilla before. Also, he's the size of a fucking skyscraper. I would not expect to put a little rocket launcher on my shoulder and aim it at a large skyscraper and for the whole thing to come tumbling down. not even 5 rocket launchers could take down a skyscraper, probably.
I have been appreciating the ramping up of Godzilla's stakes because as buildings get taller, Godzilla also has to get taller.
to get bigger because it's like, oh, he's gonna look kind of puny. Now but that's the thing. That's the thing that makes it even worse because Godzilla's bigger than ever before in many respects, or at least if he's not the biggest he's ever been, he's way bigger than he often has been.
Yeah.
And yet they're using rocket launchers. Jesus Christ! Even in 1954, they were throwing tanks at the guy. Like,
yeah, they. so the commandos. They don't kill Godzilla, of course.
Shocking.
Most of them die because Godzilla like slams his tail and hits the building and a bunch
consequences.
Yeah. So Sugimori, she's with her commander, who she has a lot of respect for, and she's like, I want to kill Godzilla. And her commander's like, no, we gotta go. And she's like, no, I want to take the shot. I want to kill Godzilla. And then Godzilla hits the building, and then rubble is falling. And we get this shot where the commander looks up and he sees the rubble falling, and we cut back to him and he looks over to Kiriko, and we cut back to him and he looks up, and we cut back to the debris falling down on him, and we cut back to him, and then he pushes her out of the way.
You know, film is many times regarded as a medium of time and the manipulation of time.
So he pushes her out of the way, the falling debris, and he dies. And Sugimori is like, no!
Very dramatic.
Takes his dog tags.
Yes, his dog tags conveniently fall off of him and away from the rubble pile under which his corpse lies, so that she can pick that up without dealing with any gross body stuff.
We have this...
Or, digging through any of the rubble.
We have this motivation defined of, like, she already wanted to kill Godzilla, and now Godzilla killed her commander, and she has his dog tags. And
but I'm sorry, I just have to harp on the dog tags. The point of the dog tags is that soldiers wear them so that if their body is heavily damaged by weapons or debris or whatever, that they can be identified. They're not... Necklaces don't just fall off unless you're, I don't know, fucking decapitated or something. Like, it stays on.
Listen, I'm all for dramatic dog tags being available.
This
I'm all
isn't
for
like
that.
Bruce Wayne's mom. This isn't like Martha Wayne's pearls shattering and scattering everywhere, which, by the way, if they did that, then they're fake costume pearls. Real pearls have little tiny knots in between each pearl, so that if the string snaps, you don't have a whole bunch of them just sliding off of the string. You just have like 1, maybe 2, depending on where the snap is. So when Bruce Wayne's mom's pearls like scatter dramatically in the gutter, it's you're like, well, one, the artist is like a plebeian with no taste, so they just don't know. Or 2, they were costume pearls, which makes her getting murdered over them even sillier and more pointless, which I do enjoy that interpretation, considering that the guy that kills them often doesn't even take off with the pearls. But this is like another thing. I'm like, oh my, I have to think about necklaces, I guess. We've discovered this now.
I need you to know that watching this scene, I was like, okay, she's a military person, and now she has a vendetta against Godzilla because he killed someone that she was close with. Oh, hey, just like Yuki from Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. And then I immediately had the thought, this movie better not make me miss Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla.
For every really great Godzilla movie, there's 3 mid ones and at least 2 terrible ones. Actually, at the end of all of this, we'll have to go back and do a retrospective of what the ratios are.
I have not been keeping track of our ratings, and I do kind of want to see that line graph.
I mean, on the one hand, of course, I maintain that art is subjective, and attempting to grade it on any sort of definitive rubric or scale is kind of pointless, and that general analysis and discussion is a much better, evaluation of art rather than, say, a percentage score or a letter grade or a star rating. But we do that because our audience is the internet. So,
yeah. Well, I would like to do a retrospective at some point because now our definition of Godzilla has expanded.
Yeah.
We now have a retrospective now on the paths that Godzilla has taken.
We'll have to do a S ranking, A ranking, B ranking.
That'd actually be a pretty good video as we did a tier list.
Yeah, we'd have to do a video. Anyway, sorry, we're just so bored with this movie. We want to talk about other things.
So 5 years later, an anti-Godzilla task force is created, known as
I hate this.
the G-Graspers. That's right, we're gonna grasp Godzilla. We're gonna put G-Grasper on our hats and on our cars.
I mean, like, I understand that maybe Google Translate was not yet available in 2000, but there had to have been somebody who had a strong grasp of English that they could have asked to be like, does this sound stupid? G Hunters, G Strikers.
Nope, we're the Graspers.
Yeah,
we're
they're
the
G-Graspers.
G-Graspers.
You might as well call them the
Godzilla.
Go-Getters.
So the G-Graspers, Sujimori is leading the sort of like Godzilla hunting team portion. There's also a older professor, Yoshino Yoshizawa. She's great.
Yeah, she's like one of the best characters in the movie.
Yeah.
One of the best actors, too.
And I'll also say this fun fact. Yoshino Yoshizawa is played by Yuriko Hoshi, who played Junko the photographer in Mothra vs. Godzilla.
I thought that bitch was familiar. I was like, I know her.
And Naoko the journalist in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster.
Oh my God.
We got our Godzilla alum here.
Yes, no wonder I love her.
So yeah, she's a background character, but she's there. She's cool. And we also bring in inventor Hajime Kudo to recruit to the G-Graspers.
They fucking love this archetype in the bad Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
It's only ever in the bad Godzilla movies. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. So Kudo, he's got incredibly dreamy hair. I just gotta say
his
that.
hair is wonderful.
Immaculate.
Oh my God.
It's like long, windswept. Looks great.
It's great, yeah.
And his introductory scene is that he's an inventor in a shop, and he's showing like a magic trick to some kids, where it's like he puts an egg under a bowl, and then he lifts the bowl, and it's like a full like cooked rice curry
Yeah, he
kind
like
of thing.
puts like little tiny portions of ingredients, puts the bowl down, and then he lifts the bowl up, and it's suddenly cooked and assembled into a cute little mini dish. And it's like, whoa, a magic.
Yeah, and Sujimori comes in and like lifts up the bowl and reveals these like tiny robots.
Yeah.
That like the trick is that he puts them under the bowl, and then the tiny robots cook a tiny bowl of curry. And then the kids are like, oh, the magic trick has been revealed. It's ruined. And I'm like, no, that's cool as hell.
I was like, tiny robots is vastly cooler than blanket magic. And the fact that these kids are like, oh, it's just tiny robots. What technological, like, alternate universe where tiny robots are boring in 2000? Like, crazy.
It's just a weird scene.
It's so weird.
But they had to establish he was an inventor, and they have to establish that Sujimori already has a sort of like...
She has to assert dominance over him.
Yeah, exactly. But
it's in such a stupid... I have no problem with this concept, obviously. But
I just think if I was one of those kids, I'd be like, oh, hey, can we see the tiny robots cook the meal this time? That looks awesome.
Yeah, and the fact that he's like bummed out about, I'm like, what? It's just it's a very strange little premise.
So the G-Graspers are attempting to create a black hole cannon called the Dimension Tide in order to trap Godzilla for eternity. I mean, hey, listen, we got to come up with more and more creative ways to try and kill Godzilla.
I just think that we should pause and take a moment to consider that apparently not in this movie, because they don't really they do kind of, I think they do kind of mention that like he was woken up by atomic bombs or something. But like to have Godzilla be created or summoned or conjured or origin storyified by atomic bombs, which is like the biggest, most ultimate weapon that we have yet to achieve. The way that they're going to take them down is something that is vastly far more unstable and dangerous and destructive than an atomic bomb. That's a black hole. It kind of feels like you've missed the point of Godzilla a little bit by going, but what if we make a bigger weapon? What if we make a worse weapon and just unleash that upon the world? That'll solve our problems. As if the oxygen destroyer getting destroyed at the end of Godzilla 1954 was not like so much part of the point. Like, they did make a worse weapon than an atomic bomb. They used it to destroy Godzilla, and then they were like, we have to immediately delete this and like never mention it and destroy all research around it, etc., because, oh God, worse. They learned their lesson. Here, black hole. What could go wrong?
Yeah. This is going to change history. We're going to make a portable black hole that we can fire from a satellite anywhere.
Horrifying.
Yeah.
Which, as if there wasn't so much going on as if there was, I took my glasses off. I don't need to see anymore. As if there...
Kayla needs to rub her face and her eyes in incredulity.
There was literally, like, so much of the Cold War in the 80s and, like, Project Star War was all about, like, what if we just sent nukes from satellites? Would that be a good idea?
And, here's the thing. We didn't learn because the last time Godzilla interacted with a black hole, we got a space Godzilla. Oh, no. Wait, hang on. We keep going back to space Godzilla. No.
Come on, Kevin. That doesn't exist in this continuity. This is a different continuity.
So they test out the dimension tide. It's a complete success. They fire a little black hole, but then also the black hole leaves a wormhole after effect. And everyone's much less panicked about that than they should be.
You just destabilized the fabric of reality right next to my salad.
And this is already a problem. But also, on this classified government site where they're testing a black hole weapon, a young boy named Jun Hayasaka just stumbles onto the test site.
No, very notably, he's going down the road and there's a blockade. There's military vehicles that have blocked off the road and aren't letting people through. He sees that, he takes a look, he's like, oh, I'll just go around. And sure shit, he wanders into the woods and there's no perimeter in the woods. They didn't think maybe somebody would be hiking. Maybe somebody would go around the blockade that's on the road by taking a stroll. And then, yes, he stumbles upon a black hole test site. And then there's magic bugs now.
Oh, yeah. So a giant dragonfly comes out of the wormhole, immediately deposits an egg, and then goes back into the wormhole. And then this young boy sees the egg, and he's like, oh, hey, cool, egg. And he picks up the egg.
He's like an interdimensional bug. Don't mind if I do.
Sujimori also finds him in the woods. And she does this, like, cute little, like, oh, hey, little kid that stumbled upon our classified military test site. Hey, we need you to keep this a secret, okay? And then he leaves with the egg.
Disgraceful. If this was America, that kid be in a black site. That's a joke. I don't condone that.
So then he moves to Tokyo, like, a few days later, and he has the egg, but the egg is leaking this goo. So as, like, a little kid, he's like, oh, well, this is suddenly inconvenient. I'm going to throw it away, but it's not trash day. So instead he takes this giant blue goo leaking egg and just throws it in the sewer. And honestly, realistic.
Yeah. The most realistic, like the most believable thing that ever happened in this movie was that.
Yeah.
Because there's, as a sidebar to the audience, just let us take a moment as we talk about science fiction and absurd events in science fiction and films. There is a difference between, I think very often people will use realistic or something being unrealistic to disparage a movie when the word they are looking for is believable. Because somebody will be like, I don't know, I just don't like superhero movies. They're way too unrealistic. And then the response to that is like, well, they're not often meant to be realistic. Or Godzilla movies. It's too unrealistic. It's not really meant to be realistic. It involves a giant lizard that breathes atomic fire. Realistic is not the word we were looking for. Believable. Do I believe that this is happening in the world of this movie? And do I believe that these characters are making decisions that make sense to them based off of information they have and how human beings would probably react in this situation? Is this movie realistic? No, doesn't matter. Is this movie believable? It's also not that, so it just sucks.
Yeah, as long as you conform to the rules of your world, then that's fine. But as we have said, it's like they're testing out a black hole weapon that they're going to be able to fire from a satellite, and no one's treating that with the gravitas that it should have.
Yeah, the only believable character is this kid who is reacting in any way that a child should, and yet all of the adults are just like dumb.
Yeah. So the egg thrown into the sewer turns into 100 eggs. And then that takes out some, like, nymphs, which the nymphs are about the size of, like, a Volkswagen. And we have, like, a little horror movie moment where this, like, giant nymph kills 2 people, like, outside a club.
Yeah, that was sick as fuck. Yeah, that was actually really cool.
Really cool scene.
That was a great scene. I'm sorry. That scene was also sick.
The thing with summarizing this movie is that there's a lot of like individual concepts that sound cool as hell. It's just somewhere in the execution of this movie, I was incredibly bored.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating thinking about that. Anyway, so the giant nymph kills 2 people and then sheds its skin and turns into a giant dragonfly. So Jun sees the dragonfly and alerts Sujimori that it was probably a Meganulon, which, he takes out like a little school textbook and he's like, look, this is probably what it is. And by the way, just for nomenclature reasons, so Meganulons are the nymphs and Meganula are the dragonflies. So he's like, oh, this was probably a Meganulon that turned into a Meganulon that turned into a Meganula. And then later on, the big one is going to be Megaguirus. You got that?
Yes, it has multiple evolutions. I'm familiar with Pokemon.
Cool.
I made a Pokemon reference at the top of this episode.
So we got bigger problems as well, besides just the giant dragonflies. Godzilla movement has been identified, and Sujimori and a few other G-Graspers head out on this futuristic aircraft called the Griffin, which, look, we're watching Godzilla movies, okay? We've watched through the Showa era. There's a lot that...
And the Heisei.
Yeah. And so we don't really crack that much on like the special effects. Like I love Mothra versus Godzilla. Very clear that Mothra is just a giant thing on strings. That's fine because within the visual language of the movie, it fits. So when I say that like the Griffin doesn't fly right and Megaguirus doesn't fly right, and the quality of the special effects takes you out of the movie, you can take that to the bank because we have a lot of tolerance for special effects in Godzilla movies.
Especially Kevin.
Yeah.
Like, Kevin is the first one on the scene to defend what I would call overly long monster suit fights. But yeah, this was... Again, there is very little in this movie that is working at any point in time. Perhaps they should have had slightly longer to work on it.
Maybe,
here's the thing. This is what I am learning, actually, is that the director of Godzilla 2000 is the reason that Godzilla 2000 was an okay movie. Because if the writers were the same and the writers didn't like all of the director's suggestions on the previous film, and were now given more freedom to do whatever they wanted and execute their ideas, they're not very good.
Well, okay, I actually have to disagree with you because they're, like, we commented on Godzilla 2000 how the editing was piss poor. Like, the American cut actually made it better because they cut out a bunch of the fluff and they made it tighter and they added music. And according to the writer, a lot of that was the director's decisions, like how the action was presented.
Okay.
So I think there was just the team itself just wasn't working for these two movies. Yeah. So I think it's just like, it's not on any individual.
Yeah.
It's just there's a lot of disparate parts that aren't clicking together.
It is film is a collaborative medium, and it usually does not live solely by the talent of one individual, and it does not die solely by the terrible decisions made by one individual necessarily.
So they fly out to the ocean, they find a Meganula corpse, and it was blown apart. And then they find Godzilla coming out of the ocean. So they came out of the Griffin and went onto a raft in order to examine the Meganula corpse. So they're on the ocean when Godzilla appears. And so Sujimori, she's like, don't take me out yet, I got an idea. And she like jumps off the raft and climbs onto Godzilla's back in order to attach a tracker to him.
Badass.
So I actually have to go back in time a little bit to give a little bit more context to the scene because I skipped it over. So the inventor Kudo and the soldier Sujimori, they're trying to set up this like elbowing, flirting. It's real clunky.
It's a real clunky setup to a romance. They're doing a lot of like, he's goofy, she's a tsundere. It's not working.
Yeah, he walks in while she's like exercising, and he's like, you're exercising too much if our black hole weapon is going to kill Godzilla anyway. And she's like, well, I have a personal vendetta. And he's like, okay, we'll take this tracker with you just in case, because we got to set this up. she like fires it at like a weight and it like hits. So
she fires this weapon in a crowded room at a metal object, which it could easily ricochet off of, just with no warning to anybody. It was incredibly dangerous.
But you can see in the writer's head, we have to set up her having a tracker that is strong enough to sink into Godzilla's scales. And so that's what they came up with. And it doesn't feel right.
I feel like...
But you can see the logic.
It would be very simple
Anyway,
for them to set up some sort of test, and you can do something where he's a terrible shot and he's not hitting a target that is absurdly close. And then she's like, oh my God, rips it out of his hand, makes the shot, and he's kind of like, ooh, that's hot. Yeah. Like, whatever.
Yeah,
whatever.
I think this movie once again goes to show that it's like the human element is actually an important part of the Godzilla movies, strangely enough. If you don't have characters with like good dynamics, you know, then when you're in those parts of the movies with the human characters, you're like,
You like skip to the monster bits, and then the monster bits are just like, why does it look weird?
Exactly.
What was going on with the flooding in this?
Oh yeah, suddenly Shibuya is underwater. And I get it. They didn't have enough budget to show the water surging in, but they don't even cut to like a news report with some stock footage. It's literally like we cut over to Shibuya and the water is like 10 stories high.
Yeah.
But also in other shots, it's about
shin height.
Yeah, shin height. So it's not consistent how flooded Shibuya is.
Yeah. And it's very strange because I'm like, I don't know, is it very hilly, a la like San Francisco or even Los Angeles? Like, are there areas that are going to be, I mean, I'm sure that the topography of the city causes some areas to be more flooded than others, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm unfamiliar with Shibuya's geography, but it does look weird in a movie.
And also, Kudo, at one point, he's just like, oh, hey, Shibuya's flooded. Well, I created this little remote control Griffin aircraft. And it's like, you were on the Black Hole Project. When did you make this? In your spare time?
I don't mind the gag of this guy whipping together inventions in his spare time that would be useful in other situations. I wish that they would show him like on his lunch break, maybe like tinkering on something else, or like consult like in a meeting about the Black Hole Project, and then also working on this other little thing. And they're like, "What is that?" And he's like, "Don't worry, it'll probably help us later." Like,
and speaking of special effects, it's like he whips out this remote control drone, and it's about like it looks like a model airplane, like it's about like hand size. But then in the scenes where it's going through flooded Shibuya, it's the size of the street. And it's like...
Consistency? Yeah, I don't know her.
Yeah, exactly. So they're examining underwater Shibuya, and there's eggs all underwater, and there's hundreds of these large nymphs on the buildings. I love this shot.
Yeah, that shot was really good. So they're like on a raft through the flooded streets. We're like eye level with the humans on the raft, and they're going between these buildings. And then you can see like the backside of one building into this side street just covered in bugs. I mean, if you live anywhere that has like cicadas or locusts or something, you have an idea of what I'm talking about here. Just absolutely carpeted with bugs. And it's like looming now behind this human crew as the camera stays on it. And one guy like looks over and is like, uh-oh.
I'm realizing we had a lot more to talk about this movie than we thought.
There's much to decry, but also we will give credit where credit is due in the probably like 5 spots where it's due.
No, but this shot was genuinely horrifying.
Yeah, that was a great.
This is a great shot.
It was a good shot.
And they're like firing at all these nymphs, but there's like hundreds of them,
yeah,
so they're like shedding their skin and flying into the air, and it's just like, ow, dude. So the dimension-tied weapon is rushed. It's not directly like 100% fully done. So we have that scene where the military people are like, we got to get the super weapon out. And the scientists are like, you're rushing us. We got to make sure we do tests. And it's like Godzilla and these giant bugs are here. We got to get this out now. Like that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Also, Godzilla's back. He comes onto the shore, Shibuya, and they've got the dimension-tied weapon on the satellite. And they're like, all right, here's our chance. We're going to shoot a black hole directly at Godzilla. And what's all these giant swarms of bugs?
Oh, no. Complications?
So big fight on the shore as Godzilla is fighting a giant swarm of bugs. I do like these scenes, by the way, because I think the sort of logical next step of Godzilla fights giant monster is Godzilla fights a bunch of smaller monsters. I think that's much more of a challenge for Godzilla.
Do you think that you could fight like one horse-sized duck or a duck or 20 duck-sized horses?
Exactly. The answer for Godzilla is both, because he starts smashing them and they start like stabbing him with their stingers and like absorbing his energy, and then he breaks out his atomic breath and just like flamethrowers them.
Yeah.
So that's cool. The fights in this movie are actually pretty good if you ignore how Megaguirus is animated.
The fights are great if you ignore key elements of them.
Yeah. And then they fire the black hole weapon, and it lands, and it creates a whole crater, and everyone's like, we got him! And then Godzilla comes out of some rubble, and
they fucking missed.
They missed!
Just...
I'm sorry, that specifically is the funniest thing to me, that like Team America bullshit of like firing an incredibly powerful weapon and then huge explosion, and then it's like, shit, we missed.
I'm not sure how that's like specifically like Team America.
There's a scene in Team America where they fire a rocket launcher, and I think
this is a different movie.
No, yeah, Team America World Police.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't know. I mean, crucially, well, sometimes Americans do miss.
I mean, yeah.
But oftentimes they don't.
No, there's a scene in Team America World Police where they fire a rocket launcher and it hits against the Eiffel Tower, and the Eiffel Tower collapses, and it causes a lot of calamity. And the guy who fires the rocket went, I missed. Okay. I think that's the funniest part of that whole movie.
That's funny. Okay, cool.
And that's the energy here when they fire the black hole cannon and it creates all this destruction, and then Godzilla's perfectly fine. Everyone's like, we missed. So the remaining Meganula return to the cocoon of their queen, and they inject all the Godzilla energy into the queen. So all the Meganula die.
Like a really fucked up bee.
Yeah, like the queen itself is in a cocoon, and then they give all the energy to the queen, and then the cocoon opens up, and then we get the giant dragonfly known as Megaguirus. And also, as per a lot of these movies, she's a Godzilla hybrid. So. Yeah. And because she's specifically a queen, that means that she is another female kaiju. She's not Mothra, but...
she's another flying bug. This is like, we have two women. One is a white woman with brown hair, and one is a white woman with blonde hair. Look at our diversity. She's just another bug.
So, round 2. Megaguirus attacks Godzilla on the shore. Megaguirus's wings can disrupt electrical equipment. And we also get a cool shot of her like flapping her wings and destroying a lot of windows. The flapping of the wings animation is not great. I'm sorry, I got to keep harping on it, but like I said, it's just like I'm used to Mothra on strings, and that's fine with me. But for some reason, Megaguirus's weird CGI animations are not. Anyway, so the wings give off a frequency that disrupt electrical equipment, meaning that the G-Graspers, their Griffin aircraft, and the Dimension Tide are all useless. So now we have the big fight against Godzilla and Megaguirus. I should also say that this is pretty much the same Godzilla suit as the previous movie, even though this is his own continuity. So the Godzilla here is incredibly spiky, and that's going to become relevant in this fight. So, big kaiju fight. Some of the highlights... Megaguirus slams Godzilla into a building and then gives the camera an evil smile. And you can see like it's not the suit itself doing the smile. They just kind of use the blur tool.
She's Hammond.
Yeah. And then she drops more of the building on Godzilla. She also has a poison stinger that she stabs Godzilla with, and she can take Godzilla's energy and blast him back with his own atomic energy. That rocks. I love that. And then at one point, they do a samurai clash. Like they look at each other, and then they run at each other, and then they run past each other, and you hear the swing. And
then there's a moment, and then blood.
Yeah. Godzilla's incredibly spiky dorsal plate cut off one of Megaguirus' claws. And I'm like, that's cool. There's also a point where, so Megaguirus, by the way, going back to our, like a boxing metaphor, Megaguirus is trying to use her speed against Godzilla. And that has its pros and its cons. But she's also doing that thing where she like gets behind Godzilla and like attacks him. Like she keeps trying to sneak up on him. And to his credit, eventually Godzilla figures this out. And so Megaguirus comes up from behind him, and then Godzilla grabs her tail and slams her to the ground. And then jumps up into the air and body slams her.
You know, Kevin was a wrestler. Did you guys know this?
It's so good. This fight, I will say this fight, obviously best part of the movie. You know, it's they did put attention into the Godzilla versus Megaguirus fight. Finally, Megaguirus tries to stab Godzilla in the head, and Godzilla bites her stinger right before blasting her with his atomic breath. So, Megaguirus is done for. Honestly, if you just took the Godzilla vs. Megaguirus fight and made its own short film, it would work. Even though the animation's bad. But, like, they did put attention into the choreography of the fight.
Well, sure.
So, fight's done. Movie's done, right? Nope, still got a Godzilla to deal with. So the G-Graspers... Oh, right, there's this incredibly background character that I now have to mention. So the G-Graspers find out that Motohiko Sugiura, who was the head of the Green Energy Initiative, illegally held a plasma reactor in the Bureau of Science and Technology's HQ. So maybe that's why Godzilla's pissed off. And everyone's pissed off at the old man, and they're like, how dare you endanger us by investing in clean energy?
It's so weird because you're like, well, he wasn't supposed to do that. He was like breaking laws and putting people in danger. So you're like, oh, it's like a corrupt, selfish government official thing being slapped on at the end of this movie so that it has something to say. But it's still about like clean energy, which just feels weird because it's not like the movie is trying to say that dirty energy is safe and good.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, again, I guess we should all become Luddites and cave people again. Like,
no, we need to go back to oil. Because Godzilla never attacks an oil plant. It's electrical plants, it's nuclear plants.
Like,
it's
he never goes after an oil
reactors.
rig. I don't know how many oil rigs are around Japan.
Yeah.
Has he come attack oil rigs in? There's probably oil rigs around Japan. I mean, there's oil rigs like in many places, but there's no reports of him going after, say, the Gulf Coast. Like, he could go around South America or through the Panama Canal.
Yeah.
Godzilla actually going through the Panama Canal would be a fun sequence, I think.
That would be fun. So they're mad at the old man, and then they're like, okay, now we got to deal with the Godzilla problem. So
Good thing we have a black hole generator.
Well, here's the problem. The dimension tide is on the satellite, but now the satellite is falling to Earth because of Megaguirus' interference. So the G-Graspers only have one shot.
See, that's another, like, her electrical, okay, so her electrical power, or her EMP blast and electrical interference reaches up into space, and yet somehow Japan isn't totally blacked out.
Yeah, right.
Like, what?
Like, some things work, some things don't. And taking the satellite out of orbit from the EMP is also...
What about all the other satellites?
Right.
There's a lot of satellites up there. None of them are falling? I hate this movie, Kevin. Why'd you make me watch it?
There's a lot of inconsistency in this movie. The more you make me think about the inconsistency of your own rules, the more you take me out of your sci-fi film.
Yes.
Anyway, so Sugimori, she's in the Griffin, and she tells the inventor Kudo to lock onto her ship, and she'll fly at Godzilla, and that will give the satellite a target.
Why can't it just target Godzilla? Isn't that what it was designed to do?
Right, Godzilla's a much bigger target than the moving aircraft, but okay, we get a little dramatic moment.
Does he suddenly have, like, camouflage capability? Whatever.
Like I said, it just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
But
We just have to set up a potential sacrifice.
Yeah. So they fire the black hole at Godzilla. Godzilla looks up at the black hole, and he fires his atomic breath straight up into the air. And I'm describing this, and this should be cool as hell. But at this point in the movie, I'm like, are we done yet?
Yeah. And it's not a long movie.
Yeah.
It's like an hour and 40 minutes, hour 45, something like that.
Yeah. So, boom, big explosion, big crater. Godzilla is gone. Also, Sugimori is completely safe. She got out of the aircraft. She's fine. So a few weeks later, Sugimori returns to Kudo's shop. Kudo's got like a broken arm from all the Godzilla shenanigans.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, Godzilla might come back at some point. We would love your help. And Kudo is like, I'm done with big lizards. And then we end on a shot of like Sujimori like hitting Kudo playfully. And he's like, ow. And she's like, I'm sorry. And then we freeze frame on that clip. And
it's so weird.
It's so like she goes, I'm sorry, freeze frame, credits roll.
It's like freeze frame on her face in such a strange, like in a, just kind of a weird expression.
Yeah, it's the energy of that. You ever see that one clip of the end of that Christian movie where it's like, hey, Scotty, Jesus, man. And then it freeze frames on him. And then the credits roll. Oh, I got to show you that clip later.
No.
Anyway, it's funny. So here's the thing, though. That's not the end of the movie because we have an after credits scene, and we're a lot more used to that now in the post MCU age.
I did not expect an after credits scene. This is news to me.
Oh, you didn't see the after credits scene?
No, the credits started to roll. I was like, thank God it's over, and I slammed my laptop shut and I went to bed.
Oh no, Kayla, there's an after credits scene. Because in the after credits scene, we see that Jun, the little kid that stole the egg and technically caused all this, if you don't count the government's creating a wormhole.
I mean, Godzilla was still there.
That's fair.
He created a second problem, but the Godzilla problem was still there.
The director also gives himself a little cameo because he's like out in the schoolyard, like with the kids. But anyway, so we cut to school. Lil Jun is attending school. What a strange adventure I went on. And then he looks outside and he hears a terrifying but familiar roar. That's right, they missed again.
This movie's so stupid. Well, that's the thing is, like, it's already implied because she comes to his shop and she's all, there's been an increase in seismic activity. Does this have anything to do with the fact that we are a volcanic island on the Ring of Fire? Probably not. It's definitely totally giant monsters, even though we seemed to have gotten one with our black hole generator. I mean, last time it was pretty clear that they missed. Whatever. This movie sucks. 1 star. It was boring, and it really didn't make a lot of sense, and it was a big nothing burger.
For me, there's like a 20-minute cut of the movie where you take just like the Godzilla versus Megaguirus fight and, the black hole being shot at Godzilla. Like it's like there's clearly thought put into some parts of this movie. And so, I want to give it a 2 out of 5, it's like, but also like, I believe I gave a 2 out of 5 to Son of Godzilla. And it was kind of the same thing. It's like Son of Godzilla had some cool parts, but then, of course, all the manila parts
I'm pretty sure I gave.
Made
have
me
you
mad.
given you've given a 1 star before, right?
Yes. Well, I gave All Monsters Attack a 0 out of 5 because I just thought that was a bad movie, just in general, toe to tip. But I think a lot of my stuff has kind of landed on 2 out of 5 for the poorer movies because, like I said, it's like I can see the individual parts that work. And I think part of it is that when I'm going through these summaries, it does give me a different experience when I'm like saying this stuff out loud, divorced to the context of me feeling during these fights, is this movie over yet?
Sure. I simply give the movie, for its good parts, the 1 star. If they didn't have any, then it would be 0 star. But we've talked before about how I'm harsher on these movies than you are.
Yeah.
This is part of the whole why you have 2 co-hosts thing, to offer a contrast of opinions.
Yeah. So some quick fun facts. There's a sequence at the beginning of the movie where they're talking about like, the original Godzilla, the 1954 stuff. They have some shots during the sequence where Godzilla originally attacks Tokyo. And those are actually shots from the original 1954 film.
I thought that they might be.
But they digitally added in the new Godzilla suit.
That was the other thing. I was like, this looks like that movie, but the suit is not it. Okay, that makes sense.
So you have some very clearly older footage, but with the nicer Godzilla edited in. It's just
I don't know why they needed to really do that, but okay.
This Godzilla suit and the Megaguirus suit would also make a cameo in the movie All About Our House. And this is All About Our House is like just a regular comedy film. But there's a scene where it's like a bunch of people are having an argument on like an apartment balcony. And then like a door opens and Godzilla just randomly comes out and then he runs away. And everyone's just like, what the hell? And then later on, they're having a barbecue and Godzilla's just there. It's fun. It's a nice little cameo.
Yeah, that's fun.
That clip is shared a lot around the fandom. Let's see. Talked about Yoshino Yoshizawa. And one other thing. So while this movie wouldn't release in American theaters, it would be the first official American release of a Godzilla film on DVD to include the original audio.
Oh, okay.
So
cool.
before this movie, America's experience was always with dubs.
Yeah.
And so this is like, no, let's have the actual Japanese audio with subtitles. I think we've come a long way toward America's general tolerance toward watching movies with subs to get more of the original context.
Part of it, honestly, is specifically that this is a Godzilla movie, which will have a dedicated fan base, even in America, and Japanese media in general has a dedicated fan base in America. This came out in 2000, so we've already had the 90s anime that had a huge surgence and really started to bring anime into greater popularity in America, and thus, like, with it, this acceptance of subtitles over dubs. So I think that's if Sailor Moon strutted so that this movie could stumble into American homes with subtitles.
Yeah. I do have to put in a little technically here. Technically, it was the first release simultaneously with the next movie, which was it was released on DVD simultaneously with the next movie that we're going to watch. And so those two were the first Godzilla releases on DVD to have the original Japanese audio. And that is my very clunky transition to, hey, Kayla, what are we watching next?
Next, we'll be watching Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters, All-Out Attack. What a title.
Also known as GMK.
Be sure to watch the Japanese version, not the English dub. If you like this podcast, be sure to subscribe, give us a rating, leave a comment, and share with a friend. Follow us on social media. We got the links in the show notes. We also have a Ko-fi. You can support us there and get access to cool bonus content like extra episodes and access to the private Discord, where you could talk with other geeks about Godzilla and all things Digital Kaiju. Check it out. Gorilla Whale is a production of Digital Kaiju Studios. It is hosted and produced by Kevin Carpenter and Kayla Knudsen. Gorilla Whale has no official affiliation with Toho, Legendary, or any other companies associated with the Godzilla franchise. We thank you for watching along with us. Until next time, watch out for kaiju.
Watch out for kaiju.